So this name section, we want it to look like this. It's drastically different. I totally understand that. So our drastic difference is going to include this background image. So let's go back into our code. We're going to go back to our style sheet and we're going to look at our name. Okay, so that's this area here. So we don't want a background color, we want a background image. So we're going to say that. Say background image, and the way that you call a background image is URL with a regular parentheses, and then a single quotation mark. And then inside those single quotation marks, you're going to just start typing your location. And I think I used the PNG. Okay, so I've got this background image. The location of it is in this images folder. So what I prefer is to have my own folder for my images. You can actually put the image in this, and then you won't need this images part of the directory. So, but for me, it's just easier to organize. I like my folder to be pretty well organized. The images are all in one spot, and this is the image that I use for the background. So this Control S. I don't need to do anything here because this is going to be a background image. So the background of this whole div, this name div, should change and be that Saturn picture. So let's take a look. Refresh this. Okay. So we've got this Saturn picture. Right. I know it got really dark and you can't see this, but my name is still there. Okay. So, this doesn't quite look right. So what do we need to do? We need to make this thing taller. Okay, so we need to make this thing taller. I'm not sure that the image is wide enough. I think it ends right here. So let's take a look at that. So we're going to make this same image. We want it to stretch 100%. We want it to stretch all the way across this image, but we also want it tall enough to see what it looks like. So this, if we look at this, I'm going to guess that this is something like 300 pixels tall. So let's say that. Let's make our name section height. You know what? Let's make it 350 just for fun, just to be safe. So 350 pixels tall. Let's save that. Let's take a look at this. Let's do that. Okay, so it's taller. I'm not sure it's quite tall enough yet. Okay, so we want this to be a little bit taller here. Let's call it 500. Let's refresh that. Oops, not that one. This one. Let's refresh that. Okay, we're getting closer. I think this thing is still a little bit taller, so let's go 600. Okay, boom. Okay, so now we've got most of this image, but this is not wide enough, so we want to stretch this thing. It's kind of hard to tell, but this thing, the image stretches across, it ends because that's the size of the image, and then it starts again. This is the very beginning of Saturn here, so we don't want that. We don't want to tile it. We just want one image to cover the entire size of the screen. So we're going to say this. We're going to say I messed this up somehow. How did I do that? 600 pixels. Let's try that again. Okay. Okay, so we're going to say we want the image. We don't want it to repeat, so we're going to say no repeat.
And this keeps the image from repeating to the right. So when we refresh this, now we see it's just a single image. So the next thing we're going to do is going to try to make that image stretch across the whole width of the div. And the way that we're going to do that is by using background size and the attribute that we're going to use is cover. So when we put that in there, attribute cover, that should make the image stretch all the way across as we see it's doing now. Now we're going to work with the text, and we're going to see if we can get that box around it.
Okay, so we vertically centered this by using the align item center. And now we're going to horizontally, justify this. And the way that we do that is justify content center. So the tag for that is justify content center. Let's save that. Oops. Let's save that and refresh. Okay, boom. So we've got it where we want it. Okay, basically. We've got it in the middle. Okay, so now, what are some differences here? First of all, obviously the color. So let's make our color, that's going to be an easy fix. Color is going to be white. Save that. Okay, boom. We also need to change, I wish I knew fonts better. We also need to change this font. So, okay, so I did mess with the font a little bit. I found a font that's much closer to this font, so at least it looks similar. Okay, so I found a better font. I think I got the size pretty close by just changing the font size. I did not use that, I don't think. Okay, all right, so that's what we've got. So now we're gonna work on this box around the words, and I feel like we're pretty close. So this top section is probably the most challenging section. So we're gonna just try to make this box, and then we'll just go through the basics of these two. Okay, so I've got my font where I want it to be. Now I'm going to work on my box that's just around the text. So the way that we're going to do that is going to be a little bit different. Start off with just a simple box around it, and then we'll style it to make it look closer to this one. Okay, so basically we're going to go into our CSS, and we're going to make what is called a class. Okay, so a class is just a classification of a tag, and it's going to be signified with a period. So I'm just going to copy and paste this. So it's a period, and then we're going to call this class an inline box. Okay, so we're going to call this class an inline box. The border is going to be 5 pixels. It's a solid border. The border around the text is just a solid line, and then it's white. Pretty self-explanatory. Our padding is 50, so that's how far the box is going to be from our text. So it's going to be 50, probably something like this, 50, 50. So our box is going to look something like that. And then our inline block, that just tells us that it's going to be within that div. It's just going to be inline. So pretty simple. Let's take a look at this. I guess I should save it. How many times have I done that so far? Okay, so saved it, and now I'm going to, oh, wait a minute. It doesn't do anything yet because we haven't assigned the class into our index. So this is what we want to put our class on. So it's a paragraph, and we're just going to say class equals, it automatically puts the double quotation marks, and then we called it inline box, I think. I think that's what we called it. Yep, inline box. Okay, so inline box, don't forget to put your closing tag. And then, so that little line of text, so it's going to say this paragraph, which is this whole section. This whole section. Okay. This paragraph is now going to be classified as an inline box. So it's going to look at our style sheet, and it's going to say, oh, we're going to do this for everything in this paragraph. So this paragraph is going to now have a box around it if I spelled everything correctly. I think so. Okay, so we're going to save this. We're going to also save this. And then we're going to take a look and we're going to see if we get a box. Boom. Okay, so we've got a box. It does not look like this box yet, but it's the right idea. Okay, so I'm going to say that this thing needs to be a little bit shorter. Our padding needs to be a little bit less. So we're going to move the box a little bit closer. And the way that we do that, our padding is currently 50. Let's make it 45. All right, and then we'll look and we'll see. Definitely moved it in a little bit, but not significantly. Let's call it 40, just to see what that looks like. And then we'll go boom. All right, it got a little closer. Okay, so our top and bottom, we'll call that good enough. But we definitely want to stretch these sides out. So we're going to do our left and right. I don't know. Maybe 150 pixels, something like that. So let's go here. So our padding, let's call it 200. No, let's call it 180. Okay, so you may have noticed my little trick here. You could put in padding. If you don't specify which part of the padding it is, top, left, right, middle, or not middle, top, left, right, bottom, then you can do all four at once. Or you can use two different numbers. The first number would be top and bottom. Second number would be side to side. So let's take a look. I think I saved that. Boom. All right. I would call this pretty close. Maybe slightly wider, slightly shorter. So let's go 35 pixels tall, and let's go 200 wide. And again, this 200 pixels and the 35 pixels, that's the distance from the text. So that's the distance from the text. It's not how tall the whole thing is, it's the distance from the text. So let's say that. I think that looks pretty darn okay. Maybe it should be a little bit wider, but not too much wider. So let me see about the thickness of my line. Maybe the thickness of the line should be a little bit better. Let's call this 8 pixels. Let's see what that looks like. All right. Definitely closer. Okay, so we're close, and then the last thing that we'd want to do is we want to make these corners rounded. I have not done this a lot, so let's take a look. I don't know what we're going to call that. Let's call that 25. So we're going to say border radius, and then we'll say 25 pixels. Not even sure how that's measured, to be perfectly honest. So let's take a look at this. See what happens. Oh, not bad, actually. I would say that's pretty close. Let's make this a little bit wider. It just bugs me that it's just not quite there. So let's go to, I don't know, 225. 225. Not perfect, but pretty darn close. One of the things that keeps making it seem like it's so far off is this header section that we're going to work with for the end of the lesson. We'll work on that. There's a reason why that's bouncing around, and we'll solve that in a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to say that our section here, this name section, I'm going to call that good. We've got our header section. We've got our name section. Now we're going to work on our About Me section.